Hi, everybody. Welcome to U4-L6 Christianity and the Roman Empire. So, students can identify Abrahamic religions, identify two non biblical sources of information for early Christianity, paraphrase how Christianity spread after Jesus' death, identify the type of people who became the first Christians, explain the way in which women were influential on the early Christian church. So, yeah, we got a lot to go through today. Your job in the Ed puzzle questions in blue text are ones that I want you to answer on the Ed puzzle itself. But, there's kind of a change up a little bit here. So there are also questions on your study guide that you need to answer as we go throughout this Ed puzzle. Okay. So here's lesson 6 right here. It said, how did Christianity spread after Jesus' death? Why did Christians have to worship in secret during early Christianity who became Christians? What was the role like for women in early Christianity? Okay, you need to answer those questions on your study guide as we go throughout this slideshow. You can't skip them, okay? You need to answer them. Let me know if you have questions about that. All right, back to the slideshow. Wait, Miss Corey, I didn't think you could teach about religion. Is actually a part of the state standard that I need to hit. If you want to look it up, it's right there. Also, religion and history are incredibly intermixed. To pick out just the religious pieces of history is like telling me to pick out just the sugar molecules in the jar of honey. Once I do, it's not honey anymore. Same with religion and history. If you pick out all the religion from history, it isn't history anymore. Yes. Did you enjoy that analogy? I came up with it last year. It's the best one I could think of. If you have another analogy, you can certainly send it my way. All right. Religion. So you have to look at religion kind of like a diamond. So you probably don't have any diamonds on hand, or especially large diamonds. So I'm going to use the snow globe because that's like the best thing I got right now. So religion, like a diamond. Every way you look at it, you will see something different. So you'll see different colors, different cuts, different ways that light is reflected through the diamond. So no matter where you look from it, you'll always have a different perspective. And that's the same thing with religion. Okay? Everybody has their own take on religion. Okay? Everyone sees that diamond or snow globe, in our case, a little bit differently no matter where they look from it. So, there is an infinitive amount of ways to look at religions. In this slideshow, though, we're up here. We are going to be doing just the historical perspective of it. So, like, we're just taking one little tiny look at religion, but there's so much more to explore. All right, what I'm not going to do, I'm not going to change your perspective of your religion. No, I'm not here to do that. What you choose to believe is your choice. I'm just giving you the historical aspects. So we're going to get started. From the U4L, that should actually say L5 video, What is Christianity? Tell me at least 3 aspects of Christianity. So, basics of what the video covered. So we talked about monotheistic, right? They only believe in one God. It started about 33 CE after the Messiah, Jesus, died. Jesus was a Jewish carpenter. The Roman Empire put Jesus to death after he was seen as a religious rebel. We'll talk a little bit more how strict the Roman Empire was with religion. Let's see here. Remember, people in the Roman Empire had to follow the imperial cult. That meant that they had to worship all the Roman gods. They could worship any of the Roman gods, all of them, one of them, any number of them, but they just couldn't practice others like other religions. So that's why Christianity was seen as like rebellious. Followers, aka disciples, spread the word and teaching of Jesus. And today, Christian sacred text is the Bible with the Old and the New Testament. All right, so the origins of Christianity. We talked about during the Egypt unit Judaism. You read that document about it. So, again, Judaism started about 2000 BCE, varies on the source. It's also monotheistic. The important messenger is Abraham. He's considered the first Jewish person. The holy text is the Hebrew Bible, which includes the Torah. Christian Old Testament and the Hebrew Bible have a majority of the same text. So, from Judaism came Christianity. And again, that started about 33 CE with Jesus' death. Main messenger and Messiah is Jesus, who was a Jew himself. They believed in other prophets. So, people who spread the word of God, including Abraham, and the holy texts are the Bible with the Old and the New Testament. So, both of these are considered Abrahamic religions, okay? Jews and Christians believe in the same God. All right. So, what do we know about the early Christians besides the Bible? So, there are about 10 ish non religious sources that mention Jesus as a real person. There are a few that are disputed by historians or, like, I don't know, arguments and stuff like that. So, that's where there's 10 ish. There are two major sources, though, that talk about Jesus. One is Flavius Josephus, and the other is Roman Senator Tacitus. So, Flavius Josephus, he was a Roman Jewish historian. He lived from 37 to 100 CE, so he was born about 3 years after Jesus died. Um, he wrote briefly about Jesus' popularity, death, resurrection, and Christian followers. Um, So it's here, I'll read this out to you. This is what he wrote about Jesus. So again, this is a non-biblical source that mentions Jesus. So he says, about this time there lived Jesus, a wise man, if indeed one ought to call him a man, for he was one who performed surprising deeds and was a teacher of such people as accept the truth gladly. He won over many Jews and many of the Greeks. He was the Christ, and when upon the accusation of the principal men among us, Pilate had condemned him to the cross. Those who had first come to love him did not cease. He appeared to them, spending a third day restored to life. From the prophets of God, he had foretold these things and 1,000 other marvels about him. And the tribe of the Christians, so called after him, has still to this day not disappeared. So there's one. He also writes another passage about Jesus, but it wasn't as direct, so I didn't include it on there. The other dude who wrote about Jesus, that's a non-biblical source, Senator Tacitus. So he was a Roman senator from 56 to 120 CE. So again, he was born after Jesus died. So he did a lot of writing in history about the Great Fire of Rome. The Great Fire of Rome happened in 64 CE, and it literally is what it sounds like. There was a giant fire in Rome. It destroyed um, 10 out of the 14 districts within 9 days. So remember, they don't have fire departments or um, like what do you call it? Fire hydrants. Thank you. Um, so if there's a fire in Rome, it's just gonna burn like all of Rome down, which it pretty much did. The emperor at that time, his name was Nero. He's very famous for being crazy. And he was rumored to have set fire to Rome, by the way. Here's a statue of Nero here. So, Senator Tacitus, he is explaining that Nero was mad about the fire and he blamed the Christians for it. Not Tacitus, Nero blamed the Christians for starting this fire. In Tacitus' explanation, he mentions Christ, which is Jesus, that he was put to death by Pontius Pilate. And Pontius Pilate was a governor of a region of Judea from 26 to 36 CE. And he served under Emperor Tiberius, and he was the guy who gave Jesus the death penalty. So, if you want to know where Judea is, we talked about it with the Middle East. but it's right here. So, really, the crossroads between Africa, Middle East, and Europe. And this is what Senator Tacitus said about Jesus' death. He said, consequently, to get rid of the report, Nero fastened the guilt and inflicted the most exquisite tortures on a class hated for their abominations called Christians by the populace. Christus, from whom the name had its origin, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hand of one of our procurators, Pontius Pilatus. So, okay, so Christianity first spread in Jerusalem area after Jesus' death, which makes sense, right? Because Jesus was based out of Jerusalem. And again, that started about 33 CE. Both Gentiles are people who aren't Jewish, and Jews could become Christians. So it was a very open religious, anyone can join. And Jesus' disciples spread his teachings around the Mediterranean, Northern Africa, and Western Asia. I'll show you on a map on the next slide. One of the most famous people who spread Christianity was Paul. He was one of Jesus's apostles. He was actually the chief disciple. So remember, a disciple is like a follower of Jesus. And he is famous for traveling great distances to spread the faith. So here is a map of Paul's journeys. So you can see here is Jerusalem. Okay. And you can see it goes all the way up here through Anatolia into Greece, back around. During his voyage to Rome, he also goes, of course, through to Italy. And just from there, Christianity just really started to spread. Yeah, yeah, he really went a long way. And think of that too. A lot of that was on foot. Okay. He walked most of that, but also took a ship, of course. He can't walk the Mediterranean. All right, so Jewish leaders were really mad at the disciples for spreading Christianity. The Jewish leaders didn't accept these new teachings. There's like, hey, we've been doing this, like teaching this Jewish religion for 2,000 years, and now you want to change it? Yeah, they were pretty mad about that. Jewish leaders banned disciples from Jewish communities, which led the disciples to travel and spread the word elsewhere. So Christianity actually became more widespread because of that. Early Christians were mostly middle and lower class, so people like artisans, other just like physical labor workers, and also enslaved people. Women were vital to early Christianity. Women could own property and houses under the Roman Empire, which is awesome. And also, lower and middle class women were not housebound, meaning they could go to the public markets and they could go to like the water wells and they could spread the beliefs to all the people that were around them. Upper class women, not so much. They had to stay in the house, which is unfortunate. All right, so worship was really tricky for early Christians. It had to be held in secret, and I'll show you pictures of like a underground church in a few slides from now. But the Roman Empire hated the new Christian religion. So that's where women would typically offer their houses as a place of worship. And also in the Roman Empire, women who choose not to marry, which was seen as a really negative thing in Roman culture, could seek leadership roles in maintaining Christianity and their meetings. So, for example, here is a underground church that's located in Turkey. I'll show some better pictures in a few more slides from now. But it is important to note, although women did have some freedoms under Christianity, there were some restrictions as well. So women could not hand copy Christianity's holy texts, because apparently that was a man's job. And the majority of the middle class women could read and write, but they just weren't allowed to copy the text. Women could not participate in leading worship, so they could host it, but they just can't lead it. And women were not allowed to travel far without being accompanied. So they couldn't preach Christianity to towns and cities like we saw with Paul's map. They couldn't do that either. And that was just kind of the Roman norm, is that women like could stay in the town, but they couldn't like go and travel unless they had like a man with them for some reason. All right. So here's kind of a an example of an underground church. So this building looks like a very typical old Roman Empire stucco house, but there's a secret underground church. This is called Saint Ananias House. It was built in, or it's located in Syria, and it was built before the death of Jesus, and it was an underground church that like began in about the 400s. So the structure itself was there before it became a church, if that makes sense. Um, but ever since the 400s, it's like remained like a church or a chapel. So you can see here today it's converted to more like a modern chapel. Next are some pics of the Christian catacombs in Domatia, Rome. They were built from about 100 to 300 CE. They are 17 kilometers long, and they still contain the bones of bodies of early Christians, which is pretty cool. I believe you can go tour it. I don't know. I've never been to Rome, but if I will go tour this because it looks super cool. Here's an example of what the kind of the hallways look like. So all these slots right here is where they would put like the dead bodies of the early Christians, and that would be their eternal resting place. And if you don't know what a catacomb is, that is a man-made underground long passageway or like hallways made to bury the dead and decorated with religious pictures and symbols. There's a lot of other catacombs in Rome, but this is one like the oldest. So, for example, in this catacomb, here is a picture of like a very famous icon of Christianity, which is Jesus' Last Supper. So that was like before he was arrested under Pontius Pilate. He had like a supper with all of his disciples. So this is painted in that catacomb that I'm talking about. You can see here, this is a chamber of the Flavi family, which is apparently a famous family that's in this catacombs, but you can see it's very nicely decorated. You can see like angels and other little symbols around. Yeah, the bodies would go right here. There's also more pictures of Jesus and his 12 apostles up on the ceilings. There is also pictures of martyrs and also so this one is specifically a martyr, Petronella, and a martyr, which is a vocab word on your study guide. So make sure you don't miss this one because it's a kind of in small text. But a martyr is someone who is killed due to their faith. So here's a picture of Petronella. Here's a little bit more of a zoomed in pictures. All right. So that kind of concludes Christianity and the Roman Empire. I mean, we'll talk about it a little bit here and there throughout the rest of this unit. So just to wrap up today, everyone has their own perspective of religion, like my analogy of the diamond. Christianity and Judaism are Abrahamic religions. Christianity's holy text is the Bible. Christianity believes Jesus as the Messiah. Jesus was put to death for going against Rome's national religion. There are two non-biblical sources of Jesus, which came from Flavius Josephus and Roman Senator Tacitus. Early Christianity was popular among the lower and middle class and included both men and women. Early Christianity was spread by disciples traveling around the Mediterranean. Men and women were not seen as equals in the early church, which is important to note. And we looked at the early church and some of its catacombs. So next up, you are going to do U4-L7, the martyrdom of Perpetua and Felicity. I'm actually going to walk you through a little bit of it before we go here. But this is one of the most well-known cases of martyrdom in Christianity. Again, martyrdom is when someone is killed because of their faith. Perpetua and Felicity were killed by the Roman government in 203 CE. It's kind of a complicated text, but I have a lot of really helpful hints about it. So let me go to that real quick. So here's the document about the martyrdom of Perpetua and Felicity. I know, right? Like in the first unit, I'm like, oh, we're going to be doing some primary source analysis. And then, like, we didn't for like the last 2 units, but now it's back. We're doing it now. So yeah, I know. This one's a little bit of a trickier text than what your the cuneiform tablet text was that I assigned to you back in like unit 1. So the directions. You are going to read the following text about one of the most famous martyrs, Perpetua and Felicity. This text is a bit more complicated than what you may be used to. I have chunked the text up into chapters. I also put in a sidebar where you're going to be answering the questions about the text. So answer them in the sidebar. I've also put in text with orange. So anytime you see brackets with text in it and it's orange, that is me giving you hints and clarifications to help you along with the text. Also, if you want me to read the text to you, click this right here. It's a video of me reading the text to you. So if you're better at like listening and reading along, that's a good option. It's not required, but just there if you need it. So for example, if here, do you see like the brackets and I have some words in there in orange? That's me giving you hints of what they're talking about. And then you'll see over here, I have questions. So like question number 1, who is Vivia Perpetua? What kind of life did she live? You're going to answer that right here in this box. Like answer it right below that question, okay? You can see throughout, I do that. And I'm pretty good about having the questions right next to where the text, like where it's talking about it. So I did make that kind of nice. Just a little help. If you have questions about any of this, let me know. This one is worth a lot more points than usual. So typically things like this are worth 5 points. This one is worth 10 points. You don't have to do anything down here. This is just a rubric for me to figure or to like grade your stuff on. But if you want to know what I'm grading you on, it would be this. But seriously, let me know if you have questions because this is a trickier text and I am more than happy to help you out. It's also a longer text as well, so make sure you allow yourself plenty of time. This is not something that you should do like at 11:50 on Sunday. Like, give yourself like a solid 45 minutes to do that assignment. Again, if you have questions, email your teacher, either I or Mrs. Hinkle. If you want to learn more, please email me. My office hours are Mondays from 12 to 1. Mrs. Hinkle's are from Wednesdays from 2 to 3. And if you're part of my courses, I'll post a weekly check-in. Again, let me know if you have questions, okay? See ya.